Hey everyone, it's your girl Maddie here, aka Beavermosh, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by Steve Ramsey of Satan, whose new record, Songs in Crimson, is coming out on Metal Blade Records on September 13th. Now, Steve, you're in a band, Satan, that is
Yeah.
often associated with what people look back on as this thing called the new wave of British heavy metal. And
Yeah.
I gotta ask, when you were recording those first few Satan albums, did you guys ever consciously think, "Hey, we are doing something new. We are pushing heavy metal forward. We are the new wave," or was it just kind of ended up that way?
I think the moniker, the new wave of British heavy metal, kind of done us in a way, because I think we were a little bit different than that. The music at the time, I don't think there was any bands that sounded like us,
Mhm.
and but we had that moniker because that's what the music was around at the time. That's what the press called it, the new wave of British heavy metal. And our experience of that is we produced what we thought was a great album. And when we released it in the two countries that we performed in the UK and in Holland and Aardschok magazine in Holland and Kerrang magazine in the UK gave us really bad reviews.
Hmm.
And we thought we were doing something wrong. So that's why we ended up changing the name, changing the singer, all that, because we were impressionable young kids and thinking that, oh, right, we're not fitting in. When
Yeah.
really we should have stuck to our guns and just carried on doing what we were doing.
Yeah,
So
and
that term new wave of British heavy metal for us is a bit like, yeah, yeah.
yeah, the term is interesting because it does kind of an umbrella term for a lot of bands that are very different. Like, you and Angel Witch are not the same
Yeah,
band as, say, Raven
yeah,
or even Iron Maiden. There's definitely distinctions there.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So something your bandmate Russ Tippins said that I found interesting, went on record saying that recording in the 21st century has become no more than a series of binary code, and that this new Satan record is kind of a response to that. And I'm wondering, how is this new Satan record different from other rock and metal records being recorded, right now?
Mainly because we played it all. So the bands are going in now and fixing things because I mean it's the digital age, and I guess if we were a new band, we'd be doing the same thing
Hmm.
because that's how you would be brought up to record and to play and whatever. But everything's fixed, you know.
Yeah.
Things aren't just played, put down, and then people listen to the performance that you did of the song. Every little bit, every little crease in the music is ironed out through the digital media, and that's what people are listening to now. Like everything perfect and all in line and all exactly in time.
Hmm.
And I think if we were brought up on music from the 70s where bands just jammed all the time, people could jam, they could just get together and just what a few chords and just jam around them. And now there's lots of people that can play amazing, technically amazingly, but they haven't got any of that sort of heart or spirit in them and idea to jam and stuff, you know. And I think the two things with the digital and that are making music a bit different than it was in the 70s. So I think that's what Russ is saying. He's saying we're still doing what we did when we were kids because that's the way we did it and that's the way it was done, you know?
Yeah, when you listen to like those old, say Pink Floyd records versus records now, it may not sound as clean as what recording studios do now, but there is such a life knowing that it was just very organically recorded. Again, that is what you're hearing. You are
Yeah,
hearing the band.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, so you're a band that had taken a break as a band for almost like 25 years. There were short stints in there, but I'm wondering what happened in 2011 where Satan decided it was time to really reignite this thing and start recording again.
The story was crazy because we got offered to do Wacken Festival. It's a really big festival in Germany.
Hmm.
And that was in 2005, I think it was.
Yeah.
And at the time, Sean, our drummer, had been in a car crash and damaged his right ankle, and he couldn't play his bass drum. So we ended up saying yes to doing the show and having I think it was Blitzkrieg's drummer, Phil Brewis. He played drums for us, and we had a few rehearsals with him and did the show. We had also booked another show called Keep It True, which is a really old heavy metal festival, that does the traditional metal stuff. And Graham, our bass player, had an accident as well and cracked his head open, and we didn't make the Keep It True festival. And then for 5 years, every year the festival was on, Oliver, the guy that runs the festival in Germany, he just hassled me for Steve, you can do the festival? No. Steve, you can do the festival? No. It was just went right for 5 years. I was like, wow. And then I was waiting for it to come again, and then we got a phone call off Sean saying, I've been down there the rehearsal room and I've learned how to play all the bass drum on my left foot.
Wow.
Yeah, very much. Like, wow, wow. And so we went, okay, he wanted us to go down and have a jam with him. So we went down and played a few songs. And it was like, yeah, great. And then I said, look, guys, he's been hassling us to do the Keep It True festival in Germany. Why don't we do this one for Sean? We'll get back together and do that festival. And then Sean's had his little taste of doing it again, kind of thing. No plan to do any more gigging or any recording or anything. And then we went to that festival, and it was absolutely crazy. We did a signing session, and I think we signed every fan in the whole place, was about 1,200 kids. Everything, it took about 2 hours of signing records and jackets and shirts, and it was crazy feeling. And then obviously we get back in the recording studio, and then up pops a riff. Russ pops up with a riff, and then we start jamming on the riff, and then it turns into a song, and then
Was there like this excitement you felt like when you realized like, oh wow, we are really doing this again? You was it
yeah. I mean, we didn't believe for 1 minute when Oliver was telling us all the young kids love Court and Yacht, and we're going, yeah. And then when we got to the crowd was basically half of the audience would have been in the early 20s and teens, at the front, all singing all the lyrics. And it was like, wow, is this really happening?
It's a great record. I have it back there. It's a record that has like stayed with people.
Cheers, man.
Yeah. Your lineup has remained incredibly consistent. Everyone that's in the band now has been there since at least 1983. You and some others have been there since 1979. How has the band been able to keep this chemistry for so long?
I think first and foremost, we're friends. We're all friends. And if anyone asks what's the best thing about being in Satan, it's how tight the friendship is.
Yeah.
And we got together. Me and Russ got together. We went to school together, and for 4 years at high school, I saw him about, but I'd never spoken to him or anything. But when we got to about 14, 15 years old, I kept seeing him at every concert I went to. So he loves all the same music as me. And then I heard he got a guitar. So me and my best friend, went round to his house and to have a listen to him playing this guitar that he's got. This Fender Strat his dad had bought him. And he's playing some Motorhead riffs and stuff, and we're like, wow. And I said to him, let's form a band. I've already got a school book with the logo on. And I'd already written the logo out, the symmetrical Satan logo and everything with the flames and all that.
Yeah.
It was just like, okay, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'll play guitar, but would be like Judas Priest. It was so naive and so easy like that.
Yeah.
And my best friend played the bass, but we ended up sacking my best friend because he wouldn't buy an amplifier. And Graham was Russ's sister's boyfriend.
Oh, okay.
And he used to be coming around the house and listening to us playing that, and he'd be like, all right, you guys like this sort of music. And we found out that he liked the same sort of music. I was like, what are you doing? I said, I play classical guitar. And we went, you bass player. So he was the new bass player, and we just people like that. It was crazy.
That's quite funny.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's all like just tight friends. We went to
yeah,
see Brian Ross in Blitzkrieg and
yeah,
decided that he was going to be our singer. And we went
mhm,
to see Sean. We had a couple of drummers before Sean, but when we saw Sean drumming for Raven. So before Raven had made a record, Sean was their original drummer. And we went to see them, and of course, Raven, a crazy band. And that's exactly what we wanted to be like wild. And it was like, that's the drummer.
it almost sounds like almost like the Metallica story when like you hear Metallica going to go see Cliff Burton's band and they're like, "Yep, that's our
Yeah,
bassist. We're getting that
that's the
guy."
new, it's definitely him.
Um, I remember Earth Inferno coming out a couple years ago and listening to it and being like, "Wow, this record is just as good and feels as inspired as the past records like Port in the Act." And something I find, I think a lot of bands that have been around and continue to make records do find themselves in the spot where they find themselves kind of in the state where the idea just kind of slow down and the records feel less fresh and interesting. How do you keep finding new life in your music every record and keep that quality up?
I th it's a weird thing.
Yeah.
In the in the 80s, we were kind of looking for an identity,
Yeah.
and it was already born on Caught in the Act. We just, because someone told us that that wasn't the way to go, we were still trying to look for something else.
Yeah.
And then it was easy when Satan got back together because we know how to do that because that's what we we're doing in the first place.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
so it was so easy to write material. And Russ hadn't been in a metal band for 12, 20 years. He played in all sorts of bands and stuff, but not a proper metal band. So
Sure.
he had all that build up in him. I was in Skyclad, which is like sort of folk metal. So I'm writing
Yeah.
something completely different, you know. So when we got back together and went, can we write a Satan album? It was yeah, easy.
Yeah.
But we obviously we didn't know that we would be able to keep it up like this.
Yeah.
But the music's so intricate, and we can use there's so many places we can take the ideas from that I don't think we'll be running out soon.
Something when I listened to the new record, Songs in Crimson, something I was drawn to and I loved about the record was this kind of interplay between you and Russ and your bassist Graham. And I'm wondering, how do you all come up with these riffs together and find the right recipe of, who's playing what at what time and, when to have a lot going on or when to take it back? What's your approach to that?
We sort of have our parts. I'm kind of when we started, I was the rhythm guitarist
Hmm.
because Russ was ahead of me on the guitar when we
Yeah.
were learning. Yeah. So I kind of right. Steve's going to play all the chord stuff, the choppy stuff,
Hmm.
and my guitar sound on the SG was like good because it was heavy.
Yeah.
And Russ has got that more like that sort of Richie Blackmore stratty sound,
Hmm.
and that's why we like the two guitars because they were different from each other, and then we
Sure.
could really use them as like I play the bass, the solidity with Graham, and then Russ
Yeah.
puts all the sparkly on the top. That
Yeah.
was the idea. And then we mess around with that, and that's sort of our format. And then I think on this album, like Graham's particularly Sean. I mean, he's always great, but on
Yeah.
this one, he's put some special stuff in. It's almost more interesting than the guitars.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was listening to it, like, wow, this bass is punchy. It's definitely not just following like the root notes. Like it is doing its own thing, and I
Yeah,
appreciate
really doing
that.
it something. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um,
I think as well as like as we got older as well, our musical knowledge has developed a bit,
yeah,
so we know how to do that much better than we like in the early days.
sure. Well, one more question for you. For those, who have been a fan of Satan Records, who have been following your band and are looking forward to this new one, in what ways is it going to, appease your fan, be like all of their favorite Satan records? And also in what ways is it going to maybe challenge listeners in ways that fans, how should fans expect it to be different?
I expect this to be different compared to other Satan albums.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
there's a couple of things that really stand out about it for us. That it wasn't contrived or anything. It was the fact that none of the songs on this album are over 5 minutes.
Mm,
They're all just songs, and
yeah.
very the important emphasis on this is song.
Hmm.
They're not like intricate pieces of music with some fantastic melodic singing over them, like some of our songs are.
Yeah,
They're real songs with choruses and like very song oriented, and that's why it's called Songs in Crimson.
sure.
The title came to us because of that. And I think each song has its own thing. There's a couple of songs on the album that at first I was sort of curling my lip at when we came up with the riff.
Hmm. Yeah,
Whore of Babylon and Martyrdom. For me, that's too simple. That's too straightforward heavy metal for Satan.
yeah,
And as we developed them into songs, we realized that we were giving Brian a lot more space on those songs. And then he shone, and it was like, wow. So when one of us backs off, the other one gets to move forward. And it's
sure.
kind of on this album, I would say that's what it is a little bit more than other albums, where we all get to go to the front and come back, and then someone else takes our place.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Steve, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me. Thank you for kind of enlightening my listeners on what to expect with the new record. And for everyone watching at home, of course, always thank you to my patrons. My name is Maddie, aka Beaver Mosh, and I'm out of here. Look out for the new Satan record.
Cheers, Maddie.
Bye.
It's a pleasure. Bye bye.